Welcome back, everybody, to the Meeple Marathon. Today we're going to be continuing our unboxing of Cloudspire. Now, this is actually the second unboxing video for Cloudspire. In the first video, we covered all of the new content from the most recent Cloudspire Kickstarter. But this happens to be the first time I backed the Cloudspire campaign, so I got all of the original material as well. So this is the second edition of Cloudspire. There have been some changes, some minor changes here. There enough that they had to create an upgrade pack for people who had the original version of Cloudspire, but for the most part it's the same. So this video is more for anybody who either A, is super into Cloudspire and wants to see if they can figure out what the differences are between first and second edition. I don't know. Or if you are new to Cloudspire, seeing what's in this giant, very heavy box is for you. So first of all, this box, it's not like that big, but it's heavy. I mean, it's a beast. I'm not even going to attempt to flip this thing over. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Cloudspire, as I attempt to get this lid off without shaking the whole table, it's a kind of tower defense slash MOBA game, which MOBA is traditionally a video game. So there's kind of like some programmed minion actions in this game, along with some towers that are attacking and defending along the way, and some fortresses that you have to take down. So here we have everything that's in the box, and if you watched yesterday's video, we are going to attempt to take that content that we got in those expansions and get it all into this box. So we'll see how heavy we can make this box. Supposedly it's been like super reinforced. We're going to push it to its limits. So here is a product showcase. Obviously, Too Many Bones was their big hit. Hoplomachus was before that. I just recently had Undertow on the channel if you want to check that out. So here's various, this is all Too Many Bones, essentially. This is what I am curious as to whether or not they're going to come out with. So this is the Trove chest for Too Many Bones, which gives you all these intricate little drawers to pull stuff out. This is this huge thing, but it's meant to look like some kind of safe that's been drawn up from the bottom of the river. It's got this unique lock on it to help you pull out the drawers. It's just an amazing, it's almost like a piece of art. So I'm wondering if this is next, but for Cloudspire. So then here we have Cloudspire, more Cloudspire, Trip Lock, which is like almost a mini game for them, a game to pick a game. What's not in here, interestingly enough, is Hoplomachus. Burn Cycle was their most recent Kickstarter that just finished about a month ago. But Hoplomachus was actually their first game, but should be getting kind of a renewed Kickstarter sometime later this year. So here we have the rule book, and now this is one of the things I know that they have. Whoops, there's actually a deck of cards in there that they have upgraded. They've changed the rule book to make it more kind of user friendly, and there's almost like a walkthrough tutorial game, like a two-player game that you play through. So here is some background components, things like that, but that's not what I want to show off. So here they're giving you setup, but then they're telling you follow what's in these kind of blue sidebars here. They're basically telling you how to everything that you need to do through the first wave. So setup is here, but it's meant to be like played as you're setting it up. So the basics, this is straightforward. More of the basics, and then sequence of play. So here we start to see where they're like, okay, whoever's playing the Brahmin faction, do this. Whoever's playing the Grove Tenders faction, you're gonna purchase this terraform. The Brahmin faction, you're gonna purchase this tower here. Brahmin, you're gonna do something with this here. Again, Grove Tenders do this. And so they're literally giving you everything that you need to do step by step. They are holding your hand, almost similar to Jaws, what Jaws of the Lion did, and taking it a step back after the original game being such a success, and really holding your hand all the way through the first wave. Here, they're just giving you everything from troop movement and everything like that, but teaching you the game in the process. So a lot of this is, I've read through this, but I've skipped over this stuff here. Because eventually you get to the point where, okay, so end of wave and then go forth. Now that you understand how a wave of Cloudspire flows, continue wave 2 and the rest of the game on your own. So all of that was step by step, everything that takes you through wave 1. You learn how to play the game, and then they've got these other modes of play here, solo, co-op, endless mode, blah, blah, blah. And then a quick reference on the back. So that's the new rule book. And so then to supplement for that, they have this rules reference sheet. This is very similar to what like Fantasy Flight does as well. They have a kind of a how to play, get you into the game quickly, only gives you the stuff you need. And then basically the definition of everything is in here. So this is just like one giant dictionary. Again, with a quick reference sheet, this appears to be exactly the same as the other one, which is nice. So you can say, all right, you take this, I'll take this. Now we each have a quick reference sheet in front of us. All right, so we have our cooperative scenarios. I'm not going to, go through these specifically, but just to give you guys a sense of what you're going to see, we'll look at this first one here. So, essentially, these scenarios are giving you very specific map setups with, specific maybe win conditions. Otherwise, playing a normal, just competitive one-on-one game, you're going to each be flipping over and you're going to be creating the map as you do setup, and so it's going to look very unique depending on how you and the person you're playing against plays. But then there's all these other scenarios which are for the cooperative and the solo. So again, if you're playing competitively and just playing 1v1 or 2v2, you're just going to be creating the map however you see fit at the beginning of the game. But what's really awesome for us solo players is that how thick this is. There's essentially a little mini campaign for each of the various factions in here. And again, there's also a kind of step-by-step guide, learning the vines here, where it, again, goes over everything for you, and step-by-step, it's holding your hand. So if you're pretty much only going to be playing solo, you simply can just jump right to this instead of going through the main rule book. All right, so these are all of the faction-specific sheets. I'm going to save these until we have taken a look at some of the factions in person. So then there's a whole bunch of game trays in here, which are really fun, especially this very unique one here right in the middle. Let's take a look at some of this other stuff first. So a very fancy container for pegs. You don't need a lot of these pegs. They're just to mark your tower upgrades or your fort upgrades and things like that, but they have given you this really fun, functional container to hold them in. So there's that. Here's one of these things. I mentioned this in the first video, but people are so quick to throw these things away. You should save these and keep them in your boxes because it keeps the moisture, sucks up the moisture. Eventually they, kind of become hardened in a way or powdery, or forget what it is, but then you can just throw them away. But it keeps your, especially games with a lot of cardboard or paper cards, it keeps them from warping and things like that. So I don't even know where to start here. Here are some of the kind of terraforming tiles. So these normally are going to be sitting off to a side in a face down stack, and then you'll always have the top one flipped over, and you can actually purchase this to change the area around you. So you could block off a path. As long as there is still a path between you and your fort and the other person's fort, then you can make people like take a long way and riddle it with spires and things like that. So these are just various 3 hex neoprene mats here. So they have their own little holder, which is awesome. So they don't get messed up. All right, so there's that. Here are a whole bunch of trays that are simply, you're meant to hand these out to people, and they take their, normally your chips are all going to be sitting in something like this, and so you can take them out and you can display them here. You know, set up your spires and your minions and your heroes, and they're easy to pull from as they are, as you're, you know, setting up your different waves. So again, just really cool that they even included that in the game, because they certainly don't need to. All right. So here is a tray we're very familiar with from Too Many Bones, which is mostly dice. This one is actually a lot of neoprene and a lot of chips. But these are basically the Spire attack dice here that you'll be rolling. I'm not 100% sure what this is, other than just a unique D6 in case you need to roll one. But then you have faction-specific dice here. So these are probably the Airy and the Brahmin and the Griege and the Narara. And so these are used within their forts. We'll see where those get slotted in here in a minute. All right, just kind of going around the outside here. Okay, so here is, again, one of their fantastic tuck boxes here. This is going to have things like event cards and relic cards. Event cards are ones that you basically will draw one at the beginning of each round. You can play without them, so it's like a modular element to the game. If you want the games to go faster, it'll probably be a little easier. Yeah, so here are events, and you have things like Electrical Storm. Before the first player's turn each round, roll the d6. Okay. On a 5 or 6, deal 2 damage to each unit adjacent to a non-fortress spire. So there you go. They're caught in a lightning storm, or you could get crumbling infrastructure. Before the first player's turn each round, all spires lose their bottom upgrade. If a non-fortress spire is destroyed this way, place an unrevealed landmark from the supply on the hex. So there's a whole bunch of events here. Half of these cards appear to be events. Actually, most of them appear to be events, with just a handful of relics at the end. Well, I say that, and then there's way more relics than I imagined. So here are some of the relics which can be gained through various actions. Things like Tripwire, used when opposing hero ends his movement within 3 hexes of one of your spires. That hero is unable to attack this turn and unable to move. So, you know, Source Converter, it's just all a whole bunch of fun stuff here in the relics. All right. So those are really the only cards that are included in the base game. Our Portal Seekers is going to add a few more cards. All right. So then we have this fancy, very specifically shaped box here. And these are going to be all your land tiles along with all the forts at the bottom. So again, this, for those of you not familiar with the game, this is the path system that everybody, your minions are going to autonomously march take the shortest route through, staying on a path and marching to the enemy's gate. And so that's where you can use those terraforming pieces to say, hey, say you have a spire over here, you've built one. Actually, the spire would have to go here, but say for some reason you wanted people to go this direction around. And so as long as there's still a viable path, you could say, nope, nope, nope. I'm going to put this right here. It gives me a second place to put a spire. And now you have to traverse this way. You have to go past 2 towers, things like that. So that's what these are used for. You add those. You can purchase those from the market and add them. These, depending on how many people you're playing with, you will randomly place out. Everybody starts with a random number face down. People take turns flipping one over and positioning them however they see fit, as long as they kind of interlock and a continuous path can be created. So again, all neoprene. All of this stuff is like really nice thick neoprene. Okay, so then here we have the forts, which are make up part of the MOBA tower defense portion of the game. So here you can see the slots for the dice, 3 positions here, and then you have your source counter and your health counter. Then there's spots for fortress towers, like they were talking about, if you're not adjacent to one of these during the lightning storm. And then this is your gate, so you're going to stack up your minions at your gate. And otherwise, this is basically just kind of your specific player area. So this was for the Noara. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. And I believe this is for the Airy, the bird faction. So again, very similar. 3 spots for dice, the same 2 spots to put spires, and a front gate, source and health tracker. But all of these things in here are going to mean very different things. This is very similar to like the game Root, where each faction plays uniquely different. All right. So here's the grove tenders, the kind of plant people, things like that. Again, 3 spots for dice, all the normal stuff. And then this is the Braunen. They are the dwarves, people of the mountain type of thing. So there is their fort. And so that is everything. You can see that this box is specifically designed to hold these forts in here. What's interesting though is that there's not room for any more, and I've got 3 more I need to fit in here. So I believe there's a video out there of one of the Carlson brothers fitting everything into the base box, but we're going to try. We're going to see what we can do, because I certainly don't want to have all these separate faction boxes floating around. All right, so let's pull this out and set it aside. And then we've got a whole lot of chips here. See, like this foam block obviously can be replaced with another one of these. These are the standard health chips, which are much lighter weight and not the same material as the more clay-based chips, but we will be replacing those with these bad boys right here. Much heavier. But we're not really going to take a look at the non-fun plastic chips. Let's take a look at these. These are going to be your Spire upgrade chips. I'm not going to open these up because there's no point. They're all the same. But these here, like this, are basically your attack and your range that you can add to your spires. So they're not meant to have a lot of information on them because you're always going to be looking at them from the side. And then this is your source well counter, which is interesting that this side actually goes up to 30. The other side is going to be much smaller and only go up to 20. And I thought 20 was the max. Anyways, and this is another tower upgrade here. This basically gives you like a defense boost to your tower. This thing here is a marker token if you're playing more than 1v1, where you actually are going to, if you're playing like every man for himself in a 3 or 4 player game, you have to choose which gate you're going to head towards at the beginning of each wave. And so you take this token and you basically say, all right, I'm headed to this gate. And so that token gets placed on their gate so they know you're headed for them. I don't know why the Ares here is separated from everybody else's, but that's essentially everything that is in this chip tray here. So I'm not going to go into that in detail. Let's take a look at some of these other ones here. Okay, so here is the Ares faction. We've got a couple couple stacks here we can look through. For those of you not familiar with the game, for those of you who are, just bear with me for a second here. As Chip Theory Games is known for, all of their characters are found on poker chips, and all the information is neatly placed around the outside with some fun artwork in the middle. So this individual here is one of your heroes. It's got the golden border, which is rather difficult to tell the difference between the bronze border and the gold border. This is a minion here, and this is supposed to be a bronze border. This guy here is a hero with the gold border. I would have picked different colors personally, but c'est la vie. So what the information here on the outside is telling you is essentially how many health chips he's going to get to start with, how much he attacks for, what his movement range is, and then the little blue pip is how many upgrades he can have underneath him. Darb here is also your starting hero, which is why he costs 0 CP, the yellow fist there, to bring out, because he's free. And then how much source the enemy is going to gain if he is defeated. You can also see that he can fly, which makes sense because he's a bird. And so this little terrain symbol that looks like a blue wave is telling you that essentially he can go anywhere, because the water in the hierarchy of terrain is the hardest to cross, which makes the most sense, followed by mountains and then forests and then grasslands and then the path. So if you don't see terrain like this gentleman here, the harrier, even though he is a bird, he does not have the flying keyword and he doesn't have any additional terrain. He actually is going to have to stay on the path. But both of these guys, if we flip them over here, you can see have promoted sides, which has the star on it. So Darb here didn't really do much when he got promoted. All he really did was gain the keyword dodge, so I guess he's harder to hit. But you can see, I forgot to pay attention to what this guy was. He was moving for 4, 2, and 1 with quick strike, and now he is 2, 2, and 4, so he's hitting for 1 harder on his promoted side. So a lot of people promote much better on their promoted side. So let's take a look at one of the other heroes here. Jelana Nestor here, who, you know, she's got much better stats right off the bat. She is 5, 2, and 2 with 2 upgrades, 3 keywords she can do stuff with, but she costs 6 command points to even bring out into the game. So that's, you know, essentially, I think you get 5 in the first wave. So you can only, they make it so you can only bring out your starting heroes in the first wave, but she's very expensive to bring out, period. You're basically going to have less minions. And then if you look on her upgraded side, she's now 5, 2, and 3 with, she can take 3 upgrades and her keywords all got boosted. So, you know, there is the differences between the two sides. So here is another minion. Again, it's hard to tell the difference between the minions and the heroes, but the heroes are very unique. There's only 1 chip for each of them. Elfin Kazi, which is really fun because they can sit up on top of your towers, and then basically they're kamikaze. They just dive down and kill people. Wind Rush, so this looks like almost like it would be a tower, but it's not. It's considered a minion, but it's like a transport assault vehicle. Joust here, Humminger, another Joust. See, we're going to start seeing repeats here. There's another Harrier, there's another Elfin Kazi. I'm looking for the other hero in the mix here. Humminger, Harrier, here we go. Keem. So this is the 3rd hero. Every faction should have 3 heroes assigned to him. So this is kind of like the middle ground one. You can see it only costs 3 command points to bring him or her out. Stats aren't quite as good, but they come with flying and quick strike. And then on their other side is 5, 2, and 3. So they basically upgraded their stats. Instead of quick strike, they now have rally. And all of this is explained on your faction-specific reference sheet that we saw earlier. And then the last thing here are your spires. So these are going to be in the silver or gray background. And these are much easier to tell. Because gray and gold don't look alike. But also the statistics look much different. So this one, instead of having certainly there's no movement. But what you're seeing here is the starting chip that it gets underneath it that we looked at earlier. So this one's going to get 1 attack chip and 1 additional defense chip. It actually does not get a ranged chip, so it's only going to be able to fire on things that are adjacent to it. It costs 3 source to build, and somebody's going to get 3 source if they defeat it, and you can add 2 additional upgrades to it. On the other side just happens to be an entirely different tower. So you can see this one's adding additional range. It's going to be easier to take down, but can also take more upgrades in the end, and is going to be less source to for have people attack. So that was 2 of them, and there should be 2 more here. So then we have the high rise and the regal lookout. So this is the ones that the elephant Kazi can roost in. And then I believe that is all of them. Yep. All right, so that was the Airy. We're going to go through the other factions a little quicker than we just went through the Airy. Here is the Grove Tender faction here. So these guys are kind of like the tree folk. Everybody looks like they have a tree growing through them. So your towers here are creeping vines, muskeg, retall, and shrubbery, which is interesting. It doesn't look like it's very much of a tower. And then your minions are going to be these people here. There's very few of like these 2 here. These appear to be like special unique minions that there's only 1 copy of. So Ogre Growth and Grizzled Oak. And then you've got Treed here, Vine Herald, Taproot, and Warbriar. And then your 3 heroes. Here is your starting hero. Looks like a hyena. This guy looks like a shaman. I can't even attempt to pronounce these names, but here are their upgraded sides as well. Peaceful. So one of his special effects is peaceful, which is interesting. So here is just a quick look at the Grove Tender faction. Here is the Bronnin faction. So here you can see several towers. From what I understand, the Bronnin faction is probably the most basic faction to play with. Very straightforward. But here are their towers. Here then are their... sorry, I guess I'll leave those up there. Here are their heroes. Osh here is the starting hero. Cram the Mighty. Very expensive, 7 CP. And then Drang here, that's actually her upgraded side, is kind of the middle of the road hero. So here is their upgraded sides if you want to see those. And then your minions are interesting because they have like a siege tower here, but then they also have this architect guy who's not really meant to be much of a fighter, but he's got the builder trait, which means he can run out and either build a spire or upgrade a spire either cheaply or quickly. I forget exactly what it is, but so they have that advantage of being able to get spires out more easily if you spend the CP on an architect versus somebody like the Battleborn here. So that was the Bronnin faction. Okay, and here we have the Narara expansion. I believe I'm saying that correctly, but I could be completely wrong. So their towers are up here: Aspect, Monolith, Refractor, and Portal. And then they have lots of minions, actually. No kind of vehicle or anything like that we've seen in some of the other ones. And then we've got the starting heroes here, which Berta Gram here at 8 CP is, I believe, the most expensive person to get out on the board. Call a minion must be something amazing. But here are all their upgraded sides. And so that is all of the factions. The remainder of the chips in here are these landmark chips here, which all have this back on them and all have a white side to them. These are going to be placed face down with this side facing up, and these are going to be various things. They may be good, they may be bad, they may be like wild creatures that you come across. and you won't really know. And so this, you will be placing these out randomly, and as you approach them, then you'll flip them over and deal with them. You've also got some health trackers for your forts here. We have 3 more target chips, which basically have the various factions on the one side, and then you have a whole bunch of market chips. I'm not going to go through all these because this video would just take forever, but these are essentially equipment, upgrades, mercenaries you can purchase, mercenary towers you can purchase, and so there is a market, a small market, and a market phase where you can purchase these things throughout the game and kind of bring people in by paying source and not CP, which is interesting. So the last thing we have out of the base box here is these basically faction-specific boards. There is also what I'm assuming is meant to be like a kind of a glossary reference sheet. There's a lot of keywords here that are all defined. This is basically two-sided. There is just one of these. But then you have these faction-specific sheets, which essentially give you the breakdown of how these factions work, what all their keywords mean, gives you an overview. So I guess technically I could have just shown you this instead of showing you all the various chips, but you know, this gives you a breakdown of everybody and how they function. And then on the back side, it gives you a little background on them, but then it also covers all of the various fort upgrades, so how those work. Here you can see, you know, rolling the specific die, scrambler die, arc die, or fanatic die, things like that. So each faction has their own sheet like this. So you can see that the Brahmin here are much more simple. Like the Battleborn doesn't even have anything. He's just a straight fighter. Just go out there and fight. And again, their fortress just seems very simple and straightforward. And then you've got the Airy expansion. I think they're kind of like in the middle. They're like the 3rd ranked out of the base game ones out of difficulty. So here's their other side. And then you have the Grove Tenders. And here is their side. Okay, so that is everything out of the base box. Next, we're going to take a look at the 2 expansions from the original Kickstarter, and that would be the Griege and the Portal Seekers expansion. We're going to take a look at those briefly, and that will cover things for the rest of our unboxing. Here is the Griege expansion. Astute observers may notice that one thing they did was change the slight look of the boxes. Normally it was a kind of a full art across the front, but they decided to add this banner across all of their expansion material, I guess, to unify it in a way. Though hopefully all of these expansion boxes are just going to be stored away. But just a little note of trivia for these kind of 2nd edition of everything. So again, this is just a faction specific expansion, so adding a 5th expansion to the base game, but with our 2 expansions from yesterday, this will give us 7 total playable factions. So lots of foam in these. And so here are their dice. Quick counter. It's interesting, these have words on them instead of symbols. But there's the faction specific dice. And interestingly, it comes with a 5th source tracker and a 5th fort health tracker. I'm wondering, I was always under the assumption that this game was just 1 to 4 players, but maybe with the Griege expansion you can play 5. So okay, we're just going to take a look at some of these real quick here, because this is, I don't even know what this is. Tunnel access, collapsible, toxic fumes, exposure. I do know that these are like bug-like people and can actually burrow under the ground and pop up in various places. So that must be what some of these are for, tunnel access. Okay, so here is one of the spires, hive. It's pretty basic air defense, or on the other side it is brood nest. So these aren't even really spires so much as nests or something. Let me see if we can find the other one here. Not in here. So here is one of the heroes, cool, quick counter and capture. There's his other side. Ikri here is the queen. Consume. That's gruesome. Burrow, queen's blood. A damp skitter. And here's Oak Job. Oak Job there. He is your starting hero. 3, 1, and 3 with dig. Interesting. And then burrow. So obviously there's a difference between dig and burrow. So let's just take a quick look at these other chips. Again, they've now given me a 5th health tracker here, which is interesting. Okay, so here we have the burrower, Gekweb. I guess I'm showing you the promoted sides. Burrower, Gekweb, Mugwump. More damp skitter. Here is the target chip. Larva, toxic fumes on one side, toxic fumes on that side. Just looking for the last hero. Or have we seen? No, we've seen all 3 heroes. Okay, so that is all the chips. And here is the fort. We can flip this around so you can take a look at that. So we can take it out of the plastic so you can see it even better. So here is their fort. You'll notice that they do not actually have a place for spires right here like the other ones do. So that's quite interesting. I wonder if you can actually even approach their gate like you can the other ones. They have a gate port. Again, I'm not as familiar with the Griege. It's simply, I basically just said, give me all your gameplay stuff. And so then the Griege come with its own scenario book. Let's just see. Yep, so some of them are solo here. And let's see, solo. Okay, so it even does have at least one co-op here. Co-op scenario. So there we go. So yeah. Looks to be 4 or 5, yeah, 6 more, a whole nother 6 scenarios to play with the Griege faction, and then here is their reference sheet. So let's see. The Griege promote their minions through evolution. Your fortress is underground, which means your gate can only be attacked by adjacent units or adjacent spires. With rays, you cannot construct fortress spires. So there you go. And then last but not least, here is everything that's on their chips. So this has been the Griege expansion. Last but not least, we will take a look at the Portal Seekers expansion, which is actually not a faction. It's more of everything else involved in the game. This is Portal Seekers. Again, this is not a faction that you can play. This essentially is giving you a little bit more of everything else involved in the game. So there's actually going to be some map tiles in here, some landscaping tiles, as you can see, some relic and event cards that popped out of their sleeve. So I guess we'll be taking a look at these first here. Hopefully they didn't get all bent up. They appear to be okay. Again, Chip Theory Games' materials they use here are nearly indestructible. So let's just get this out of the way because it's not fun to look at. It's mostly a big empty box. Alright, so here are some of the additional cards. Again, I'm not going to go over all of these. But so what is this? This is a relic. That's an event. This must be another relic. This must be another relic. Yeah. So again, more relic and more event cards to be added to the game. This is very similar to the Heroes Bounty deck of cards that was part of the second Kickstarter. And then you have basically more market and landmark cards. I guess we can take a look at a few of these just so you guys can get a general idea of what is going to be on these chips here. Alright, so again, these will be, these have much fancier backgrounds on them, but these are landmarks. So they're basically points of interest that are going to be placed on the map, and then the underside of them here are going to have things like Divine Cup. So I'm wondering if these with like the special back on them are part of like scenario specific setups, because most of the time your landmarks are going to look like this, I believe. So yeah, these are all like nice things. I actually don't see anything bad in any of these. Okay, here's something. The Grail Goat. So you could flip this guy over here and thinking it was going to be one of the cups or a summoning stone, and it's going to be something you have to fight and can chase after you, it would appear. So that's what's on the landmark chips. And then again, these are your market chips here. So these are going to be things that you can purchase and then give you specific keywords, and this would be considered an upgrade, probably for like the architect or something like that. But remember those little blue pips, this is what you'd be adding. You can also find people like Kalis here, who is a hero, and he can be hired for 4 source, and then you don't have to spend command points on him. And so he's a mercenary hero for hire. You have like this fella here. Maybe he's a robot, maybe not. And then you also have minions that are for hire. And again, they do not have a promoted side though. So you cannot upgrade them, you cannot promote them, but they generally come with some pretty good statistics as well. And then last but not least, you also have things like spires that you can, I guess you're buying the plans for an additional spire. That's what this kind of looks like. So these are all things that you can buy from the market, and that'll kind of change up the look of your faction and make each one unique. So, all right, literally in like 3 different bags. A bag and a bag and a bag. All right, so this one's very unique because it's nothing but fog, it appears. There's some blood on this one, but there's a source material, and there's a source material. This is the areas that you have to build a spire. You can't just build a spire anywhere. It has to be on top of one of those source wells. That's how it gets its power to attack everyone. And then here is the last 2 large pieces, again just adding more variety to your game. And then last but not least, it would appear that this is a content expansion, 2 reference sheets covering everything. Another one of these, which is interesting. I'm wondering if this is different than the one we already saw, or if this is just a second one to have if you're playing like 4 people to give everybody, but I think that's just in lieu of an instruction manual there. So that is everything for Portal Seekers. Again, this is basically just a content expansion giving you more of everything else minus a new faction. So the last thing we're going to do here is attempt to get everything we have covered today and in yesterday's video into the base game box. Let's see if it can be done. So I've gone ahead and pulled the lid off simply because it is a bear to get off, but you can see here that everything does fit below the level of the edges of the box. There's actually even a little bit of room, one might say maybe enough room for another thickness of neoprene fort. You never know. So I have all of my rule books and scenario books on top. I did want to point out that if you took out the Uprising and the Horizon's Wrath scenario books, you should be able to squeeze this guy in here like this. Now, granted, when I put these on top, then I am raising up the lid just a little bit, but it's not bad. Again, but this is meant to go on your shelf. I don't know why people would want to stick this in the box, but you could do it. Okay, so basically all the rule books, all the scenario books are sitting on top. Then I have taken one of these plastic sleeves that all of the faction specific sheets were coming in, and I just slid everything into one. This is just going to kind of keep these together. You don't need to do this. This is more just for a protection standpoint for me. They won't be sliding around as much. All right, below that is the 3 expansion forts. So this is the Griege, this is Horizon's Wrath, and the Uprising. So these 3, this piece here actually appeared in my what was it, the Griege expansion. So I think these pieces are appearing in some of the expansion material, and according to a video early on from Chip Theory Games, they're going to put pieces like this in every single expansion, but it wasn't in mine. It was only in one, but that's all I needed. So if you see this piece, don't throw it away. All this does is create a slightly flatter surface. It's exact thickness of 3 forts, so it works out really well. And the only reason these 3 are out is because they are what doesn't fit into this holder below. So this just creates a flatter surface to put your flat materials on top of. So there is that. Then we have essentially all of the neoprene content from the base game. So the 4 forts are in the bottom, and then the map tiles plus what came with Portal Seekers, which was additional map tiles, are all on top here. You can see the lid closes. I've gone ahead and stuck this in there. I did it thinking I would need the extra space, but you can see that this can easily just fit over there if you'd rather not put it in there. So it was just one less thing for me that felt like it was sliding around. So the orientation here does make a difference. You can see that the box is not square. It is slightly more rectangular than anything. So positioning this on one of the short edges, working its way in, and then so that this kind of funky edge here is towards the inside of the box, does make a difference. That's how you make it all fit. So again, this could sit inside that, or it can sit outside. Then you have basically 6 chip trays underneath. I did try and fiddle with them, but there's no way to get all of the content into less than 6. So you can see some of these have some room for, could be another faction, or a faction and a half maybe. But then over here, and this side is a little tight, but it does all work. So this is all of your dice in the one dice tray. Here are your chip holders. This is the part that's a little bit tight, but I think it's still fine. So here's your 2 tuck boxes, one from the base game with the Portal Seekers content added in, and one from the Horizon's Wrath. This is the Hero's Bounty, those cards. And then your scaping tiles here, which again, putting everything in this orientation, putting this sideways, putting these what appears to be vertical more than sideways so they can all fit, but you can see that this lines up just with the box lid there. Then the 2 card tuck boxes in front of this, and the dice tray needs to go sideways more than vertical. But there you have it. That is everything for Cloudspire in the base box. There is one alternative to this if you don't like the idea of these sitting out, especially if you do not receive this piece here. If you wanted more protection for all of your neoprene, you could simply take any one of the expansion boxes. They're all the same size, and you'll see that the expansion boxes fit into this space and is actually a little bit less width-wise in this area than the plastic insert over here. But all of the neoprene, I did test it out, does fit into this box without raising the box lid up at all. You can also easily fit this guy in there. And then again, then you just stack all of your flat stuff on top. So some of you may prefer this method over the others. If you feel like this or having these sit out and open, I haven't quite decided which method I'm going to go with yet. But yeah, those are your two options, which is great that there are options, and it's really nice that everything does in fact fit into the base box. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more content like this in the future, please consider subscribing to the channel. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.